We're back. It's another episode of Daddy's Working. And once again, I am not the only daddy on the show. I have brought another guest to share in the joy. Tim, what is up, brother?
John, excited to be here, man. Thank you for having me, bud.
So I want our listeners to, here's the thing. I've always thought of golf as a really an old man sport almost.
Yeah.
Real low impact. And you're here after a tragic golf experience, man. How did golf turn into a full impact sport for you?
Yeah, man. No, I was a week and a half ago, I was at a mastermind. We were golfing on Friday night, and then the mastermind was all day Saturday and a little bit on Sunday. And dude, on the fourth hole, I was a little bit ahead. We were playing a scramble. We were trying to move fast. And I was about at a 45-degree angle, 20 yards up from one of the other guys hitting. And I was just, trying to grab one of my clubs, trying to figure out the lie and all that stuff. And this dude rips like a 7-iron, and I didn't even see it, man. It hit me right in the side of the mouth, and it shattered my upper mandible, which is the bone that holds in all your teeth. It knocked 4 teeth out and just shredded my gums and my lip open. And so, dude, like I didn't get knocked out, but I dropped to my knee and thinking I'd pass out because I felt my teeth, the blood was streaming. And I remember looking down and just being like, wow, this grass is really cut and manicured well. And I was like, how the hell did I think like that? Like, and we're in a mastermind together, you and I, and one of our buddies, Mark, always talking about thoughts on thoughts. And like, why are you having those thoughts? And I was like, how could I have something tragic happen and still see beauty in this? It's actually kind of cool. And then immediately my mind went to like, this could have been way worse, right? If this hit an inch north of where it did, it would have shattered my cheekbone. It would have shattered my eye socket. Could have popped my eyeball out of my eye. I could be blind right now. Could have hit me in the temple and I could be dead. And so I got incredibly grateful in the moment, actually. And it was just kind of like, I got into business mode. I'm like, now we got to go and let's go and get this sorted out, right? And so I hopped in the golf cart. One of my buddies drove me back to the clubhouse. I'm cleaning out my mouth. We're Google searching 24-hour dentist because it's Friday evening. And I'm at Firestone Country Club in Cleveland, Ohio, or in Akron, Ohio, where one of the big tournaments always was. And so there's some money people there. And there happened to be 2 dentists in the dining room. Wow. Dining separately, hanging out. So they call me up to the dining room. They sit me in a bar chair. I lean back. They're like, all right, we got to take you over to my place. So we got up in a car. The guy leaves what he's doing. Both the dentists and an ER nurse that happened to be there too, all left their Friday night.
No way.
Evening. We went over to the one guy's place. He stitched me all up, stopped the bleeding, called up his buddy who was an oral surgeon. That guy ended up coming out and on a Friday night also leaving his home. And then put my teeth back in, put this big brace and arch bar on. So I'm a little bit lispy, but that's all right. Because again, it could have been way worse. And I was extremely fortunate that these people were willing to help some random stranger on a Friday night. And, got 3 of my teeth back in, the one's still broken, but now it's just a cosmetic thing, now. So I have to wait for it all to heal and eventually it will be fine. But again, man, it makes you think. Like I went home that night and hugged my wife, hugged the kids in the morning, kissed the kids. And I was like, it could have been I would never be able to see you out of this eye again, right? Or could be dead, maybe not see you ever. And so it was like a very humbling experience, and it was very like, why? Like why would it hit me here and not a little bit higher and not make me go blind and not kill me? Like, is there a reason that all happened? You start asking, you go down this rabbit hole of like, I'm meant for a bigger purpose, like I gotta pay it forward. I gotta share an insight. I gotta help more people, make a bigger impact in the world. And that's kind of the road I've been down in the past 10 days. So it's been crazy, man, but I'm excited to be here with you.
Good grief, man. So I think everybody's wondering right about now, will you ever golf again?
Yeah. So I'm actually going to a bachelor party this weekend, and we're going to go to Top Golf and just hit some balls. But I don't know. I think I'm a little bit scarred, not only physically, but some PTSD from the whole thing. So I think I'm just going to sit it out and hang out, just have some drinks while everybody else is golfing. But maybe the next 30 days or so, I need to kind of get past a little bit of this stuff.
Yeah. So that plays into what we're about here, and that resilience of getting back out there, even when the stuff hits the fan or the golf ball hits your jaw, you get back out there. So for our listeners, Tim, I know a little bit about your background, but can you give us like the quick elevator pitch, who you are and what you're about?
Yeah, man. I'm a real estate investor. I buy exclusively apartment buildings. I've done everything in the single family realm. Got started 10 years ago when the market was good, got into real estate, the whole market shifted, and just I've done everything. I've wholesaled single family houses. For anybody who's familiar with real estate, I've wholesaled, I flipped retail houses like you see on HGTV. I've done that. I bought turnkey houses, single family, where you buy it, you fix it all up, put a tenant in place and sell it as a turnkey rental property for kind of more passive investors. I owned one of the biggest management companies. I owned a couple of vacation rentals, office buildings, and then got into apartments. I've been doing apartments, for a long time, but just that is my focus now. Like that meets my long-term goals better than anything else does. And so that's what I spend 100% of my time on now. I don't do anything else other than buy B-class apartment building, value-add apartment buildings. So I own a little over 2,500 units right now. I'm 33 years old. I'll be 34 actually next month. And I have another 648 units under contract closing in the next 30 days. So be a little over 3,200 units at the age of 34. That's cool. But what's more cool is sometimes I teach other people how to do it. And I'm able to help other people who are, stuck in the transactional, trading their time for money, flipping houses and stuff like that, like I was, and help them get into that legacy wealth building place where you have passive income, residual income. And so I do a little bit of coaching and mentoring on that front. That feeds the soul.
Let's talk about that for a little bit. How do you go from just what is your goal? You said this feeds your goal. So what is your goal? What is your big picture?
Feeds the soul.
The soul.
Feeds my soul. So I like being able to give back. I think wealth is it's like sunshine, right? Like you getting sunshine takes no sunshine away from me. There's an abundance of it. And I think wealth works the same way. And you can make a lot of money in single family. You can make a lot of money in commercial real estate. You can make a lot of money in apartments or vacation rentals or self-storage. It doesn't really matter. There's plenty of it out there. Just in apartment buildings alone, there's 44,000 apartment buildings in the continental United States, over 100 units. If you bought one of those, your financial future would be changed forever. And there's millions of apartment buildings under 100 units. You bought a handful of those, your financial future would be changed forever. So I teach people how to do that, or I mentor people on how to do that. And that's cool. And it feeds the soul. My personal long-term financial goal is $1 billion in assets. I'm at $250 million in the next 30 days once I close on this other package. So I'm a little over 200 right now. This next package is around $50-60 million when it's all stabilized. Well, it depends on how the rents and all that stuff play out, but it'll be probably closer to 60 million.
So what does that number mean to you? Why did you come up with that number, and how does it drive you?
Yeah. So great question. And it's probably one of those ego-driven answers, right? It's just a number, and it's a big number, and it makes people's eyes get wide, and it's 100% ego. I don't need to do it. I think once I remember watching this I think it was on like public television, whatever it is, PBS, right? And I'm watching this documentary on happiness, and essentially it said, hey, once your basic needs are met, your basic needs, and then it's house, over, a roof over your head, clothes on your back, food on the table, safety, security. Once those needs are met, there's no difference in if you make, and that's around $50,000, maybe $75,000, depending on the market or where you live. Once you're there, it's no difference between making $75,000 or $7.5 million or $75 million a year, right? In your happiness level. And so I've exceeded that. I'm past that. The bigger driver for me is not necessarily to have a $1 billion portfolio. It's more to just show people what's possible, right? It's to say, hey, listen, if this guy can do it from a blue collar town outside of Cleveland, Ohio, as a 34-year-old kid, I know I could do this too, right? I have better resources. I'm smarter than this guy is. Like it's more of an inspiration kind of thing for me, of showing people that their current circumstance doesn't have to dictate everything else in their life. That's not who they are, right? Like that's their current circumstance. They can do more, be more, have more, give more. And there's other things and other types of ways of making money that can create a better lifestyle, I guess, for them. And, it's not about the money. Like I said, it's about what the money can do and how it can give back. And we're in a very go-giver type mentality mastermind together where, we raise $150,000 in one night, kind of just put together a little mastermind, a couple of real estate and different entrepreneurs at that event. We raised $150,000 just from people buying some artwork. And I auctioned off a couple of tickets to one of my courses. And it's really cool to be in that type of setting. And it's not about what the money can do for us. It's about what the money can do for other people. We're going to build a village down in Haiti with that money and make a significant impact for 200 people with their own self-sustaining water and their own self-sustaining community and jobs and farm and all this other stuff. And I think that's true legacy. It's not about the treasure that you pass down, right? It's about the impact that you make and making sure the world's a better place when you're gone.
That is beautiful, man. So you said you were, let's go back. Let's rewind. So, Tim, you said you came from a blue collar background. What was it like growing up in your house? And what was the thought like around money?
Yeah. So very polar opposite between my parents. My parents are still together. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. We always had what we needed, not always what we wanted, maybe, but my dad was a very selfless guy. So he would always, since I remember, he always had 3 to 4 jobs at a time. He was a full-time police officer. He had a part-time business. Through the police academy, they paid for his additional higher education. So he ended up getting his PhD, first in our family to get a PhD, and then ended up teaching at a local community college. And although he had all those jobs, he was always at every single one of my sporting events, all of my brothers and my sister's sporting events too. And so the support was like immense. It was amazing. I won the jackpot from a parental standpoint. And my mom is like never had a full-time job. Was always a stay-at-home mom with 4 kids, but volunteered and just gave and has a massive heart for children and helping kids and education, and was PTA president of the entire school district and all this other stuff. So gotten statewide awards for just her volunteer efforts and stuff. So I get a lot of my giving from her. A lot of my work ethic comes from my dad and support from both of them. And I think it was awesome. We had what we needed. We had a great house, and probably upper middle class ish, but again, not rich, but had. Tim, you could do anything. Tim, you can go and be anything. You can accomplish anything. At the same time, they also told me to go get a job, right? And go get good grades so you can get a good job and work for somebody else and all that stuff. But then I saw my dad actually make more money part-time in his business than he did in his full-time job. And I was like, something's congruent here. I want to go take the entrepreneurial path. And that's what led me into real estate. I got into real estate when 03 to 07, I was going through college, and I was money motivated when I'm 20 years old, right? And people said, hey, if you want to make money, anybody with a pulse can make money in real estate in this market. And I was like, oh, I'm in. And then I just, went out to New York City. My brother lived out in New York. And when I was out in New York, I became a commercial real estate agent, leasing office and retail space. And my first deal I ever leased was a 400 square foot retail space in Greenwich Village, and it was $10,000 a month the space leased for. And I was like, holy cow, I'm on the wrong side of the coin. I need to be owning this stuff instead of brokering it. And then went down the path of all the single family and investing that got me to the commercial and apartments and where we are now, man.
So that's interesting that at least you picked up on it, was that your dad was pulling in more on the entrepreneurial thing. Did your parents, since they wanted you to get a good education and a good job, did they give you any kickback on the idea of just doing your own thing and not having a job?
Yeah, for a long time, for years. Because I wasn't, where I am today is very different than where I was 10 years ago, right? I remember 2012, just whatever, 7 years ago, I remember, that summer, I didn't have enough money I was taking coins from my cup holder in my car to pay for gas in my car, right? I had $24,970 in credit card debt, and I had $67 in my bank account. I couldn't make the minimum payment on my credit cards. And I remember just like crying and because I had to borrow money to make a minimum payment on my credit card, and being like, and my dad's like, go get a job. And I'm like, I know I can make it work, but at the same time, he's a parent, right? Like, as parents, I have a 4-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son now. We don't want any pain for them, right? I don't want them to go through the same pain that I went through financially, physically, right? All these different things. But at the same time, that's what makes us grow, right? That's what makes us better. And we don't want to see our kids. And I know my dad didn't want to see me suffer from a financial perspective, because he came from a very poor household, like didn't have enough money for a car. My grandma, didn't have a car for, I don't know, 50 or 60 years, the last 60 years of her life. Wow. Right. And so he grew up in that, and he knows what it's like, to be broke, and didn't want me having to go through that. But, at the end of the day, like, I knew I was resourceful enough, I guess, where even if I didn't have the resources, I could figure it out. I would make it happen. I just needed to find the vehicle. And eventually I kind of was able to make that work through real estate.
How did you keep the faith, bro? Because people get down to $24 in their account and they can't make the minimums, and they're scraping change.
Mm-hmm.
They are looking for the easiest way. And I think that the easiest way is to get a job. So how did you keep that belief and that faith?
Dude, I was like, how can I make money? Right? How can I figure this out? And, without, having to break any of my values, right? I wasn't going to do anything illegal, obviously, but I literally started selling my furniture. I started selling my DVDs. I started selling, all sorts of things in my garage. And then eventually I had my house. So I had equity in a house, not much, but I had probably, I don't know, a little over 50 grand equity in my house. And I ended up having to sell my house in order to kind of get myself, because when you're stuck in that situation, man, like, you can't see out of that situation, right? There's so much stress and there's so much weight on your shoulders. And it's very difficult to think progressively when you have that much stress going on. And I was like, dude, I had a girlfriend at the time, and I said, hey, like, she's giving me a hard time. I need a ring. I was like, I can't cover my minimum payments on my credit card, let alone a friggin' ring. Right. And, so I was like, I need to get my head out of my ass and stop, thinking I'm going to do something more than what I can currently do. And I think just pressing the reset button by selling my house would help me get there. So I was fortunate enough where I had this house. The market was on an upswing. I was able to sell it. I put 50 grand in my pocket, got engaged, and then she's my wife now. And then moved back to Cleveland, Ohio. I was down in Charleston, South Carolina at that time. I lived down there for about 5 years. And so been back in Cleveland since end of 2012, beginning of 2013. And when I was in another business, it was actually a network marketing company. And so I was doing a little bit of real estate, and then I was doing some network marketing for this one other company. And, you're drinking the juice and they're selling you on this dream, and it just didn't play out. Right. And I'm like, I know I have a better skill set. I know I can just deploy my skills in real estate, because before I joined that network marketing company, not saying there's anything wrong with network marketing. It's just, all the personal development stuff that I have in my brain today, I've got a lot of that, majority of it from network marketing. I think it's amazing to put you on this entrepreneurial path. But for me, I just had a different skill set that I could deploy into real estate. And when I did, before I got into network marketing, I had 9 houses, 10 houses, and I wasn't rich, but I had $3 grand a month cash flow coming in that covered all my personal expenses. I was a punk 24-year-old kid, right, back then. And so I didn't have a lot of operating expense or overhead in my life. And so I was like financially free, right? So it covered all my personal expenses and all my business expenses. And I had a couple of grand a month that I could sit on. And although I wasn't rich, I was financially free. And I'm like, I know I can just do that again. Like, that's when I was happiest. And so I got back into real estate, and eventually you meet some people who have some money, but maybe don't have the time or the knowledge or the skill set or the bandwidth to take on deals. And they put up the money. I did the work, and man, I gave up 70% of my first several hundred projects that I did, just because I knew I needed to like build the reputation, build my resume up. And then finally, I had some partners that went south real bad, and just life happens, right? And people don't forecast for marriage and kids and all these other things. And we ended up liquidating the whole portfolio. I was able to walk away with a few $100,000 from that. Then for the past about 3-4 years, I've just been doing my own thing now. And, although that was a big setback in my life, selling my entire real estate portfolio, that was a big, what seemed like a setback was really a setup, right? And set me up to just spread my wings and fly and do a lot of cool stuff, and not have that weight on my shoulders anymore. So, just got my own team now. I own 100% of my company, but I do partner up with people on a joint venture deal by deal basis, which I love doing. But you're not married, right? The only person I want to be married to is my wife. I don't want to be married to anybody else and anything else. But on a deal by deal basis, I love it, because you could really bring a lot of A players together. People can bring their certain skill sets and their unique ability to the project, and you soar. And I have a lot of people I do repeat business with. We're not partners across everything, but we're partners on a lot of deals over and over again, because we like to be with each other, right? We like working with each other, not because we have to work with each other.
You said something interesting there that I think would be valuable to revisit for a second for our listeners. You met people with money and they couldn't do the deal. So you put in the muscle, you put in the groundwork. Where do you meet these people with money? Where is the money?
Bro, they are everywhere. There's what I didn't realize is I wasn't telling people about what I was doing. I didn't tell enough people about what I did and how I did it. And at first, going and raising money when you don't have the confidence or you don't have the belief in yourself is very difficult to do, right? How are you going to convince somebody if you're not confident in what you're doing and your ability, especially when you're coming from not having any money and being totally broke and not being able to pay for the gas in your car, right? And so for me, it was some people approached me. They knew me. Actually, there were a couple of guys from the network marketing business that I was in, and they saw my work ethic, but they just realized I was in the wrong vehicle, right? If you and I were racing down the street in two cars and you had a Ferrari and I had a Ford Pinto, who's going to win, right? Like, you're going to win. But if we stopped at the next red light and we switch and I get in the Ferrari and you get in the Ford Pinto, I'm going to win. So it's a little bit about the jockey and a little bit about the horse kind of a thing, right? And for me, I knew I was the right jockey, but I just didn't have the right horse or the right vehicle. And so I ended up, they saw that I was not in the right vehicle. They were willing to put some money with me. And then eventually, once I built up some confidence by doing some deals, I was able to go and raise money from other sources. And there's people, a massive one is 401ks and retirement plans, IRAs, 401ks. What a lot of people don't realize is you can take that money that's with Charles Schwab or Fidelity or whatever, and you could put it into a self-directed IRA custodian, meaning it's just somebody who they don't tell you what to do with the money, but they're just custodian. There's no tax ramifications for taking it from there and putting it with this custodian, nothing like that. But now you can direct your money into whatever investment you want. You can go and buy stocks with it if you feel like it. You can go and buy a rental property with it, and all the rents that come in would either come in tax-free or tax-deferred based on the type of retirement vehicle that you have. And it's a massive opportunity. Or you can lend the money to somebody else who knows what they're doing. You can take, I have a lot of people who lend me money from their 401k. Here's $100,000, Tim. I pay them a fixed return, plus give them some equity and upside on the deal. And their retirement account grows and grows and grows. So that's a big one. The other one is entrepreneurs. For me, entrepreneurs make a lot of money. What I've seen is they make a lot of money. Some of them spend a lot of money, but some of them can keep some of it, right, and save it. But what they're not good at doing, I'm talking e-commerce and entrepreneurs that are not in real estate. They're not good at getting their money working for them. They just go and meet with a financial advisor. They stick it into, some mutual fund. They hope to make 6-8% per year, but it goes up and down. A lot of volatility, and they don't like it. And if they go and try to buy real estate themselves, a lot of times they get kicked in the crotch because it's like starting another business. It's like you or I, because we eat in the restaurant, doesn't mean we can go and open up a restaurant, right?
No,
it's a new business. And so I buy a lot of properties from smart entrepreneurs who thought they could just do it on their own. It's a learning curve. You got to go through. You got to really know what you're doing. So a lot of entrepreneur circles that I hang out with, they're looking for places to just park their money. They launch a product, they sell their business, whatever, and they have a big influx of cash. I just talk to them, educate them on what we got going on. I don't have to sell anybody anything, right? It's like, I remember a Chris Rock stand-up. He's like, drug dealers don't need to sell drugs. Drug dealers just offer drugs. Drugs sell themselves. And like the returns and the way that I structure my deals sells itself. It's better toe-to-toe than anything else that's out there between having a fixed return plus equity upside plus the tax advantages. It just makes a lot of sense whenever anybody compares it. So I get a lot of entrepreneurs who are like, dude, 100%, let me deploy some capital with you. And then they come back, want to do it again. So it's entrepreneurs who are not in real estate are great real estate investors or passive lenders for me. Anybody with money in an IRA, 401k, anything like that are phenomenal. I talked to my CPA, I talked to my attorney. I asked them who they know. They know other people with money. And when you start hanging out with people with money and they know people with money, then all of a sudden the connections are made and access to capital is a lot easier than a lot of people think.
All right, so listen, gotta pay the bills. So here is a quick advertisement for your ears that I think you're gonna find useful. How would you like to spend more time with your family and less time on your business? Before anyone chooses to do business with you, they need to know one important thing. Can I trust you? The only problem is building trust can take forever. And I know you don't have that kind of time, but what if there was a way to build trust in minutes instead of years? You'd want that, wouldn't you? Good news, buckaroo. That's exactly what you'll get inside my Digital Daddies Toolkit. It's got my top 3 speed influence tools to make you a trusted expert in any market quickly. Go to daddiesworking.com/DTT DT to grab your copy today. One thing I didn't hear you say here, well, two things. Another one is whole life insurance with cash value, which I'm obsessing over lately, which is a great vehicle for lending money to guys like you. And the other thing is I heard a rumor that somehow you raise money on podcasts. Is that true?
So one, whole life is awesome. It just takes a lot of time to accrue and build up all that, like that whole infinite banking concept. Although it's been around for a while, like it's really just kind of getting trendy now. So people are just opening up accounts now. I have one for both my kids, I have my own, but I've only had it open for a couple of years now. So in order to build up that cash value, it needs to be around for a while. And if there's people who started a long time ago, great. Yeah, I have not raised any money, or I don't know of anybody who's loaned me money from that. But that's going to be a massive vehicle. I know in the next 10 years when people have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars stocked up in that. And then from podcasts, so I have my own podcast where I educate people on the 3 principles of building wealth: making money, keeping money, making your money make more money, right? It's called Legacy Wealth Show. So I do that. And, there's a lot of people who hit me up from the podcast of wanting to invest in projects. I'm on a lot of other real estate podcasts. And as a real estate investor, you're always looking for 2 things. 1 is deals and 2 is money. So if you know how to find deals and you know how to raise money, it doesn't matter what the real estate market looks like. You can have a lot of success. And actually you make more money in a down market than you do in a market like this, because deals are hard to come by. Sellers are, not realistic in their expectations of what they want for a price point. And, again, it's not a sales thing. I just kind of go on. I try to provide as much value as I possibly can. I connect with some people. Some people might think I'm a total idiot. And the ones who like me hit me up and they say, hey man, I'm interested in, partnering up or bringing money to the deal or whatever. And so I'm not allowed to actually pitch people who reach out to me off of a podcast. I need to build a relationship first per SEC guidelines. And, but we build a relationship over 30, 60, 90 days. And I try to figure out what they're looking for, what their long-term goals are. They tell me what some of their experience is in investing. And when the right deal pops up that meets kind of what they're looking for, then I can share that with them. But it's all about relationships. It's all about educating people and just sharing your knowledge.
Say the name of your podcast again. I want to make sure the listeners get that.
LegacyWealthShow.com.
LegacyWealthShow.com. Cool. So let's keep talking about. I'm interested in how you go from the single families and the flips and all that, and you get into this apartment thing. Like, what was the transition? What was the change that happened that pushed you into that direction?
Yeah, man. Good question. I think one of the characteristics that I see on a lot of successful entrepreneurs is that they reflect very often, right? They think about what's going on. They know what their destination is. They know where they're at right now. And they can create, once you have that, then you can create the roadmap in order to get to that destination, right? Without knowing what your destination is, it's hard to create a map in order to get there. And so for me, I always knew what my destination wanted to be. I wanted to own, commercial real estate, or I wanted to own enough property to create a certain amount of residual income and passive income and create that legacy wealth. And for me, a single family just wasn't getting me there fast enough. Every 12 months, I'd sit back, I'd look at my goals, reflect on the past year. What do I need to do in order to move the needle forward? And then I started doing that on a quarterly basis. When I go out to these masterminds, it's a really good time to just sit back and unplug for a day and just think about your business. And I started progressing even faster when I did it on a quarterly basis versus an annual basis, because then you can right the ship, right? And so the course corrections aren't as drastic as they are at the end of the year every year. It's just a little bit of a course correction each quarter instead. And so probably it's been almost 2 years now. I was doing a little bit of everything still. I was flipping houses. I was doing some turnkey. I had a management company, and I still had apartment buildings, or I was building my apartment building portfolio up again. And I didn't have a lot of apartments, but I remember sitting back at a lake house a couple of years ago and looking at my net worth and looking where was I spending all my time? Where's my team spending all our time? And my net worth, 90% of my net worth came from apartments, and it was only 10% of my time. And so I thought, holy cow, what if I just, it's like the whole 80-20 rule, right? But even more drastic. I was like, what if I just pivoted the business, and instead of my acquisitions guy looking for single family houses, I told him we're only looking for apartment buildings. What if I told my project manager that instead of renovating houses, we're just going to renovate apartments? What if I told my dispositions guy, the guy selling my houses, instead of selling houses, we're going to start just managing the management company? You're going to be my asset manager. And so I remember what puts food on the table and what keeps lights on is the transactional flipping of houses, right? So I remember it being it was a small pivot from an operational standpoint, but from a mindset standpoint was a massive quantum leap, right? And so I remember going into the office after I was at a lake house. I got it for a couple of weeks, brought the family up, and that was cool. And then I remember getting back into the office and just going up to my acquisitions guy and telling the team, like, drawing a line in the sand, the whole burn the ships. We're either going to succeed or we're going to die trying. And that's what I told them. And I got everybody on board. And it's amazing when a door shuts, or even if you close it, the kind of opportunities that open up, and a window opens up. And the next deal that came across our plate was an 11-unit apartment building that was in a great area, but needed too much work for what we wanted for us to take it down. So we wholesaled it. We ended up selling it to another investor. We made $87,000 on that single deal, which then covered our overhead for the next 3-4 months, which allowed us now to go out and not have to do any single family deals. We could finish everything that was in the pipeline. Plus this additional income allowed us to give us that 6-month time frame in order to start taking down some other apartment buildings. And then I picked up over 1,000 units in the next 12 months.
Good grief, man. 1,000 units. That's amazing.
It's crazy. Yeah, it was crazy.
So did you change your marketing approach? Then it must have been you were hitting single families, and you started just going after all the multifamily owners. Is it private owners, equity firms? What is it?
Yeah, mostly mom and pop owners, people who have owned the property for a long time. They suck all the cash flow out of it. They don't reinvest anything back into capital improvements. And when you suck all the cash flow out, eventually, the roof needs to be replaced. The mechanicals need to be replaced. The windows get to go. The parking lot falls apart. And if you're not kind of creating a reserve for that stuff, guess what? Eventually you paint yourself into a corner and you can't do anything. And so they get into a spot where their only option is to sell at a discount because the place is a wreck. It's physically distressed. Managerially, it's a distress. There's not many quality tenants who want to rent a place that's falling apart. So you got to, you're dealing with a bunch of deadbeats, people with bed bugs and roaches and all sorts of gross stuff. So it's a big turnaround, but it's in a great location, right? So we come in, we renovate the property, we show the value that we're adding. We tell the people who are hoarders and not taking care of the property, not respectful to the other tenants, they got to go. We tell everybody else, you see the value we're bringing, we want you to stay, we'll improve your unit. We just need you to sign a market rate lease, and we have a science behind it. So, we go through that whole process. It takes 6 months, 12 months to do it. And then we create so much value in the property, we're able to then refinance the apartment building to a price point where our new loan amount is actually more than what we're even into the property for. So if we're into a building for, $3 million and it appraises for $5 million, we're able to get a new loan for $3.5 million, pay off the acquisition loan, pay off the equity investors, and put a couple bucks in our pockets from the refinance proceeds. And then we have a cash flowing asset with a long-term loan in place, fixed interest rate loan, non-recourse, which means nobody's personally guaranteeing on it. And it's only house money in play. It's just the bank's money in play. And so all of our investors are paid back and they still maintain equity long-term. And we just manage it and we hang on to it for the next 10 years. And we let future Tim decide what's going to happen with the building in 10 years from now.
That's amazing, man. So you've been talking about this quite a bit, this idea of unique ability. What is that?
Yeah. Everybody's like, I remember early on saying, hey, what's your unique ability? What's your skill set? And I was like, I don't know. I'm a 22-year-old kid. I got a hell of a work ethic, right? And I think that is a unique ability in some aspects. For me, I've done everything in real estate. Like I've personally gone out, knocked on doors. I've personally gone out, done marketing. I've personally raised money, gotten the financing, managed the project, managed the renovations, leased the units out, managed the tenants, collected rents, physically did the work, swinging a hammer on all these different buildings and houses early on, and did the sales side. So I know everything, and and what I've been able to gravitate towards and find out what the highest return on my time is essentially going out and raising money. Because I know everything, I can answer a lot of questions, and I have a lot of confidence in our projects and how we do business. So raising private money for me is one, and then the marketing side of things too. So social media, I'm always giving value. I'm always trying to share with other people on how to do this stuff, Like I'm a total open book, completely transparent in everything that we do. And I think that's refreshing. I think a lot of people are like, there's a lot of people having a lot of success out there that just don't share all their knowledge or all their insight. You can just feel it, right? You can feel they're holding something back. They're not giving me, the final dial on the lock. They're not telling me that final one. They're giving me enough, right? And then, like when I come out, like, listen, I give everything on my podcast. Somebody could not come out to one of my coaching programs, right? And they can get all my content through listening to different podcasts that I'm on and through all the free content that I put out there. So it's just, if they want like clean, easy to understand and follow, that's why I have the paid trainings. But for me, unique ability is what's your driving force, right? Like what's your driver versus your drainer? Like I can do spreadsheets, I can do property management, I can do that stuff, but it takes a lot of energy out of me in order to go out and do that. So what is like your most normal, easiest, most fluid, most in the zone type state that you can be in? And what are you really good at? And usually because you're good at it, you like doing it too, right? And so those two things, and as you get better at it, you like doing it more. And so those two things kind of complement each other, but it's a little bit of a chicken and egg. So you got to kind of do, for me anyways, I had to do everything in order to figure out what I really like doing. Because I was good at it, I like doing a little bit more of it. And that's my unique ability. I think there are some talents, like I couldn't jump on a podcast with you 10 years ago. If you asked me to stand up and do a testimonial in a network marketing company 10 years ago, I'd be shaking. My cheeks would turn red, right? I get all nervous. I'd start sweating like a pig, and I couldn't publicly speak for the life of me. And so I'm a really, really good public speaker now, and people say that's my unique ability. But dude, it took a lot of work for a long time, and me not being good at it for a long time. And before I could really develop the skill set to where I got better at it, and then I got more confident in it because I was better at it, and I got better feedback and all those other things. So I think unique ability and skill sets, those are all, learned traits and can be refined in a big way. But it's also a little bit of like, what do you like doing? And for me, I love marketing. I love the idea of helping other people and helping people see themselves as more than what maybe they can currently see themselves as. So I don't know if I totally answered that question, but hopefully.
No, you thoroughly answered.
All right, good.
So I also heard you, a couple other things that I want to wrap about. You've talked quite a bit about masterminds, and I think masterminds and mentorship kind of go together. So how has mentorship and masterminds played in your growth?
Both in a big positive way and a big negative way. Well, I wouldn't say in a negative way as it adversely affected me. I've had bad mentors.
Share the bad mentor story. Let me hear a bad mentor story.
I'll give you one.
No names, but
yeah. When I first got involved in real estate in Charleston, South Carolina, started buying real estate, got hooked up with this guy, and you kind of know, right? You kind of know what your intuition is, that not doing everything above board, but at the same time, when you're desperate and you're trying to figure this whole thing out, and you're looking for somebody to kind of lead you, and they see opportunity or not opportunity, but they see potential, I guess, in you. Sometimes you let some of that bad stuff kind of go to the side, especially when you're early on. And for me, this guy kind of took me under his wing, but then like he'd do stuff like, this is when everybody was getting foreclosed on, and all these short sales were going down, and people were having to walk away from their houses or renegotiate their loan terms with their lenders. And one of the things this guy would do is he'd go to people who were underwater on their house and say, hey, listen, I'll negotiate a short sale, or I'll negotiate a loan modification is what it was called. So you owe $130,000 on your house. It's only worth $100 because the market shifted. They would go in and renegotiate and get the new loan terms at $100,000 at a fixed rate instead of variable and all that stuff. So this guy would go in and say he's going to negotiate a short sale, negotiate a loan modification, and have the people move out of their house, and in order to save them from foreclosure, right? And then he'd put a tenant in the house, and he'd collect all the rent, and then just wouldn't negotiate a short sale or foreclosure.
Ooh, dirty.
And then they 12 months later, 18 months later, after he collected a bunch of rent, didn't pay any of the bills, right? And just put all the money in his pocket, he would let it go to foreclosure. And I was like, I got to get the hell away from this guy. And so got out of that and stopped working with him. Learned, from mentors, you can learn things that you want, that are awesome, right? Awesome traits, awesome things you want to take away, awesome things that you want to implement in your own life, ways that you want people to see you as a giver, and a lot of those things. And then there's other mentors who are mentors in a way that, this is the kind of guy I don't want to be like. And they can teach you just as much as the person who you do want to be like. It's just knowing and differentiating and reflecting on those things and the good characteristics and the bad characteristics and being aware of all that stuff. So I had some good mentors, bad mentors early on, mentors I've never met before, guys like Jim Rohn, right? Who was like one of the foremost thought leaders of personal development for the past 40 years. He passed away, I think in 2011 or something, 2010 maybe. And, but his book, we got it right here. It's one called 12 Pillars. This is one of the most influential books I've ever read in my entire life. And I read it every year, maybe even twice a year. And I've been doing that for the past, I don't know, almost 10 years. And now I buy it in bulks of hundreds at a time, and I give it to every single person I come across. Powerful, powerful book, and not really about finance, more about just living a quality life and making impact and paying things forward, and really, really good stuff. So eventually I got into the whole idea actually through a mutual friend of ours named Mark Evans. He invited me out to this thing called a mastermind, right? And he invites me out. I remember 2014 was my biggest year ever. I made like $130,000 that year. First time I ever made six figures. And he invited me out in February of 2015. And, I go to his mastermind, and it was a group of about 15 people sitting in a roundtable discussion type setting. And just, it's amazing the amount of collective brain power and experience in this room. And, I'm talking about what I think is a monumental issue in me and my business. And they're like, oh, you just need to hire an assistant. I was like, what? They're like, no, you just hire an assistant. That'll eliminate everything that you have going on right now. And then come back here, and we'll talk about whatever your next problem is. And so I was like, wait, like, it's got to be more complicated. No, it's not more. It's like, listen, dude, I went through that. Went through that 4 years ago. I was in the exact same situation. Here's all I did, made a massive impact. Like, here's what I did, and I wish I didn't do it, And it's just, they give you insight. You can get it from a couple different people that you can see as a mentor. And then you sit back on the information. You're like, I like this. I don't like this. I think this makes sense. I trust this person, and I don't like where that person's coming from. So again, it's not just taking everything at its face value. You got to look at it and realize that information, especially today, can be very skewed. There's some people who give insight and decision or mentorship based on stuff that they read about in a book, right? There's no realistic application that they've ever done. And that's like when people come to me, it's like, how do I get into apartment buildings? Should I just start buying small apartment buildings and keep on growing? Or do I, come to you and partner up with you and get into bigger stuff right away? I'm like, listen, I can't knock doing the small stuff and growing it organically, because that's how I did it, right? I didn't do it this way, but I know that because I didn't know that this was potential, that was an opportunity. And so now you can get involved this way, or you can do it organically. I'm good with either one of them. You're going to be wealthy either way, right? And so, going back to the whole mastermind thing, like, I remember sitting in that mastermind. I made $140,000 or $130,000 the year before. He told me I need to hire an assistant. I was like, okay, cool. I can do that, but it's going to cost me like $35,000-$40,000 a year, right, in my area to hire an assistant. He's like, well, I mean, yeah. And I was like, that's a quarter of my income. I was like, and then he goes, oh, by the way, you got to join my mastermind for another $30,000 a year or whatever it was, right? And so like, you just took half of my money, that I made last year, like. But he's like, listen, dude, it's not $35,000 or $40,000 a year for an assistant. It's about $3,000 a month. And if you don't see a return on your investment after 30 or 60 or 90 days, you're really only risking $5,000 to $10,000 instead of $40,000. So why don't you just try it out? If it doesn't work, you cut ties, you go back to banging your head against the wall and being a solo entrepreneur, right? And so I said, okay. And so I tried it out. The next 10 months, I made $400,000.
Good God.
Tripled my income by hiring an assistant. But then you got to be careful on this, because then I got so addicted to the power of human capital, right, and leverage, that I overhired. And I said, oh, there's a problem? Just hire somebody to do that. Oh, there's another problem? Hire somebody to do that. And then I overhired, and you realize pretty quickly that the number one reason most businesses go out of business is for lack of cash flow from overhiring. And so I had a really rough 2016 though. And then things just kind of, I learned my lesson and went back up from there. So 2017 was good. 2018 was great. 2019 is going to be awesome. And, and the thing about masterminds is you go out to a mastermind and you think, I just need to punch through this ceiling and I just need to get one takeaway. Great. And then I don't need to go again. This is my only problem. The issue is that once you punch through that and you get to the next level, guess what? There's another level of problems right here. So it's important to go to a mastermind that meets, like once a quarter at least. So that way you can get the feedback, get the insight, and you excel that much faster instead of just going to 1 or 2 events a year. So go to one that meets regularly, like the one that you and I are in. Not only do we meet several times a year, but we're also hop on a phone call once a week that is kind of like a mini mastermind every single week that even excels it that much faster. So it's joining a mastermind, I was at a plateau, maybe a little bit of an incline growth. And then when I joined a mastermind, I went straight up, and it was crazy.
Hockey stick, baby. I love it. I love it. So look, Tim, we're getting close to the end here. Is there anything that maybe you thought we would talk about that we haven't, and maybe you want to bring up right now?
Let's talk about kids, man. Let's talk about family.
How do you do it, man? With 2,500 units, another 600 or 700 under contract, about to close. How do you find that harmony in your life? Because you should just be working and pulling your hair out and going crazy. Why aren't you?
Well, I have pulled my hair out, just a heads. All right. No, I was fortunate enough to start in business when I didn't have a family. I had a long-term or I had a long distance relationship, and I could burn the candle at both ends, right? And I'd work until the middle of the night, like 3 o'clock in the morning, wake back up. I was excited. I could balance it out from working hard, not necessarily working smart, just try to figure this thing out. Once obviously you have kids, dude, different animal, right? And then once you have 2 kids and you realize there's no time to, hand the baby off to the spouse and then go and just relax or retarget your work or whatever you got to do, it's a different animal. And so I remember sitting right here I'm at my home office right now. And a couple of years ago, my daughter's like 4 now, and about 2 years, year and a half, 2 years ago. And she came up to me and she's tugging on my shoulder. It was after dinner one night, and she's tugging on my shirt, and I'm sending a text message or answering some emails. And it was a text message actually. And she's tugging, saying, Daddy, come and play with me. Come and play with me. Right before bedtime, right? And okay, hang on one second, baby. Send my text message, Daddy, come on. I was like, hey, just go over there. I'll be over there in a minute, and I'll come and play. And I finished up my text message, and I look over at her, and she's playing like a little sweetheart and being super cute. And then I look down at the message, and I'm like this message means nothing, right? Like this is not an urgent message, not an important message. If I didn't send this message, it probably would take care of itself. What this thing was about. And I was like, but I just told my daughter, whether she realizes it or not at the age of 2.5, that this phone is more important than me playing with her before bedtime. And then I went a level deeper, and I'm like, you do this enough, and eventually you condition your kid, who comes to you for love, who comes to you for support, who comes for you for comfort and safety, and all of a sudden you start conditioning them for disappointment. Right. And then what happens if you do that long enough? Then they start looking for that comfort and support and that inclusion and safety somewhere else. And that could be drugs. That could be sex. That could be from asshole boyfriends. That could be from, dude, you're conditioning as the guy, as the man in her life who is supposed to love her more than anybody else in the entire world. And I'm telling her that a cell phone and a text message is more important than me playing with my little girl, right? And so it was like, dude, biggest punch in the gut ever, right? And massive punch in the gut. And I was just like, I felt like absolute crap. And I was like, I gotta figure something out here. So I ended up taking the phone, and when I got home, put it upstairs, or I just turn it off. I'm pretty good at not even looking at it when I get home now. And because it'll buzz, right? It'll look at it. Just went off right now. It starts buzzing, starts twinkling, the light across the way, and you just like a zombie. You go over to it, and you got to see who's messaging you. Like the same hormones that are released in your brain from cocaine, right, and other addictive substances are the same things that get released when you see your cell phone blinking. It's crazy with the studies that they've done on this stuff. It's dangerous, actually. It's dangerous that we actually give cell phones to kids that are, every other toxic substance. You have to be an adult, 18, 21, in order to be able to use those things. And we give these things to our kids, right? So anyways, what I ended up doing, I started doing a lot of research and trying to learn a little bit more about what people are doing in order to spend more time with family. I remember going to a couple of different other masterminds and asking people what they do, and going to my mentors and getting some insight on this stuff. And it was one of those things where I had like a networking event or like a real estate investors association meeting or something like that in the evening. And it was like 5 o'clock. And I remember looking at my calendar and noticing that I had the time blocked out from 5 to 7 for this event. And I was like, that should be family time. why don't I block family time from 5 to 7? And so that's what I started doing, dude. And my calendar from 5 o'clock on in the evening, the entire night is blocked off for family time. So I don't go to networking events. Like I just had somebody who wanted to meet for cocktail hour, happy hour on Monday, 2 days ago. I said, I can't, I got an appointment with my wife, my kids. Right. And so that has been a massive impact. So I time block in the evenings, and then we implemented, I was at a mastermind, somebody told me they do Friday family fun day with their family, with the kids. And they put out a couple different ideas, and the kids end up picking, do they want to go to the zoo, the museum, the park? It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You can go to the library, you can go just, go get Chipotle and have a picnic, or just go to the playground, whatever. And the kids love it because they get to pick, and they get to say Friday family fun day, Friday, it's fun to say. And it's like a thing in our house. It's one of those traditions that I hope we keep doing for as long as they're with us. And I hope they do it with their kids, because it's impactful. I think when you look back at your childhood and stuff, the things that you really remember are those traditions, right? Holiday traditions, or going to the lake house every summer, or like whatever that is, even something as simple as Friday family fun day. And so now I time block evenings. I time block Fridays. I time block really all weekend. Now, the kid's napping and my wife's working out or something. Do I go and hop on the internet? Do I hop and answer messages or emails? Absolutely. That definitely happens. I'm not perfect at it by any means, but I'm much more conscious about it than I was before. And there's some people that I've told this to, and they're like, dude, I just wish I was in a position in my business where I could do that. I don't have as many rentals as you do. I don't have my business, as developed as you do, Tim. And what's crazy about it is that I've actually become more efficient when I'm at work, because I'm only at work for 25 hours a week now. And so when I'm at work, no nonsense. I don't do coffee meetings anymore, right? I do quick phone calls, and it's a 15-minute phone call max. I do not do anything more than a 15-minute phone call. And usually I try not to do any phone calls at all. When a lot of people are in the whole, open door policy for managers and leaders and all that kind of stuff. Come on in. Let me take my door off the hinges. Dude, I close my door and I put a do not disturb sign on there when I'm in my office. I don't let anybody bother me. I'm there on Monday mornings. My team can meet me, and then I tell them, unsubscribe me from every single email. If it's not for me, I do not need to know about it. Like, even if a building's burning down, I don't care. Tell the insurance agent about it. Don't tell me about it. So I unsubscribe from everything. And I just focus on the activities that are revenue generating activities, the highest and best use of my time when I'm at the office. And that's usually being on podcasts, doing marketing, doing some social media, doing my own podcast, or being on other people's podcasts, and really, being the captain of the ship for my company. If I'm getting stuck in the day-to-day stuff, the ship's not moving forward. Like, I need to be directing on which direction we're going, instead of like being involved in the minutia. And what's crazy is I get more done in less time because I'm more dedicated, more efficient, more conscious of where I am spending my time. And the other thing is, I've had people come to me that said, Tim, I want to do more business with you. Why? Because I realize where your priorities are, and a relationship is more important than making a couple extra bucks. And so how do we do more together? I know you're not ever going to burn me, because what we got, our friendship, is going to be more important than you making, extra money or whatever. And so I actually got more business from it too. As crazy as it is, like, it's all counterintuitive. We don't think it, and it's very scary to do it. But when you do it, it's amazing the way the universe responds.
Bro, I love the idea of calendar blocking, and that we calendar block for everybody else in our lives, and we won't do that for ourselves or our family. I've been doing the same thing, bro. Mornings are for family. So until like 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm doing my morning routine with the boy and the wife and all that. And on the weekends, you can't even get me. So
I love it.
Damn, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm so glad you brought that up.
It is the most powerful thing I've implemented. I try to time block everything now, and I try to batch activities too. Take a walk in the woods, try to bring the family. So now you're knocking out the family, checking that box and the fitness box, and you're trying to do a couple things at once, especially when you're a busy entrepreneur and trying to, we talked about this offline, balance is BS, right? Yeah. But there is harmony. Like, you're always gonna be leading with one of those pillars in your life. But that doesn't mean you need to neglect all the other ones. And so just making sure you're trying to combine some of those activities has helped. Batching activities has helped. And when I say batching, I mean like answering my emails, try to do it once a day instead of throughout the entire day. I try to batch all my podcasts like 1 or 2 days a week. I was just on a podcast before this. So that way I don't have to do it every single day. I can get in the mindset of giving value. And then the next day I can get in the mindset of raising money or reviewing deals or whatever that activity is. So time blocking, batching activities, and trying to combine activities are 3 things that have helped me in a big way.
Money. That is money, bro. So look, Tim, we have wrapped quite a bit. You've shared a ton of value with us. Where can our listeners go to find you? Like, is it your podcast, your website? Just throw everything out there so that they can find you.
Yeah. Appreciate it, bud. I mean, I'm very active on Facebook. So Facebook's awesome. Hit me up on there and connect with me. I answer all my messages, shoot me a message. I love connecting with people. And I give a lot of free content on Facebook. I also give a lot of free content on my website, legacywealthholdings.com, and on my podcast, legacywealthshow.com. And if you're looking for something more formal, and if you do want to learn either how to be an active operator and find apartment buildings and actively operate those, or a passive lender, and just how, what to look for if you're going to invest with passively into somebody else's project, Commercial Empire is my event, commercialempire.com. You'll learn more about it there, and that's more formal technique and strategy on what I do and how I do it. So appreciate you having me, dude. I love the value that you're bringing, John, and you're a rock star, man. So you're making a big impact in a lot of people's lives, and I mean, it's going to pay off in a big, dude, you don't get what you give, right? You get many more times what you give. And not that you're doing it for that. I know you're doing it for the giving, but it's going to be amazing to see how the ripple effect occurs for you over time, man. So I'm proud of you and excited for you, and excited for you to be part of the mastermind too.
Man, we got to talk again. Thank you so much, Tim. It was good having you, and thank you everybody for tuning in.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.